Orlando is an amazing place to live. It's where I live, it's where me and my family call home, and we're excited to be a part of this community and to help improve this community in any way we can. And one of the ways that I like to do that is just by teaching people about the community they live in. Orlando's number one in some pretty cool areas. We have the number one simulation industry anywhere in the country. We have, by our account, the number one football team in the country. But we also are some areas that aren't so fun to talk about. We have some pretty big problems with pedestrian fatalities. And there are some really big things that everybody knows about Orlando, such as our tourism industry. In fact, we are the number one tourist destination anywhere in the world, and we've held that designation now for a couple of years. Number two is New York, and number three is Paris, France. In fact, about 25 million people a year visit Paris, France, but over 70 million people a year visit Orlando, Florida, almost 3 times as many people. And I always find that amazing. So we're number one when it comes to tourism. But we're also number one in some areas that we don't like to talk about quite as much. So for example, we're number one in the area of childhood homelessness. In fact, 1 in 50 children are homeless nationally, but in Orlando that number is closer to 1 in 17. And a lot of people are staggered by that particular statistic and they wonder, how did we get to that place? Well, there's a lot of reasons we got to that place. One of them is the fact that Orlando is one of the lower wage economies anywhere in the United States. In fact, when you look at household median wage, there are 3 communities at the bottom. Orlando's the 3rd from the bottom, and then Tampa, and then Miami. But when you look at individual median wage, just the earnings of a single employee, we're actually at the bottom. So among the top 50 US metros, Orlando's the 23rd ranked metropolitan area in population. We're one of the 13th ranked highest media markets. I believe we have the 10th largest school system in Orange County. But we are 50th when it comes to individual median wage. In fact, out of the top 100 communities, we're 99th. So we like to talk about this, not to make Orlando look bad, but specifically so that people know how we compare to other communities in an effort to improve those communities. So we are number one in low wages. But a lot of people, when they talk about wages, or when they hear the word wages, they think of the term minimum wage. Well, what I'm not talking about here is minimum wage. I'm talking about the median wage. Median, for those of you who haven't had 4th grade math in a while, is when you line up everybody in the community shoulder to shoulder, in this case organize them by income level, and you have the person on one end making the least amount of money, the person on the other end making the most, and you pick that person in the middle. In our community, the median wage is $29,781. That's the lowest of the top 50 markets here in the United States. When I say Orlando Metro, I mean Orange, Seminole, and Osceola County. And that's how the federal government looks at us. One of the things that's important to remember here is that Orlando is the only major community in the country with a median wage under $30,000. And the reason that number is important is because you hear a lot of people talk about the $15 minimum wage. And whether that is something you're in favor of or against, the facts on the ground are that people earning $15 an hour would be making more money than the current median wage in Orlando. So we want to get those facts out there so people understand. But some people wouldn't necessarily have the context for understanding how is this number important, particularly when I go and speak at schools. So I want to show you some of the big areas where we spend our money to show you how that compares to how we are making our money or how much money we're earning. So when it comes to the most expensive things in most household budgets, we look at housing. In fact, housing costs the average person in Orlando $11,664. And along with housing comes utilities, and the average amount for utilities is $3,668. Now, Orlando has an affordable housing crisis going on, and so do a lot of other communities in the United States. In fact, for every 1,000 families in our area that need more affordable housing, there are only 17 units available. What that means is for every 1,000 families that are spending more than 30% of their income on housing and need something more affordable, we only have 17 units. But along with that is the cost of utilities, and in Orlando, we index high compared to other markets nationally. So utilities is a little bit more expensive here. So is transportation. Transportation is a little bit more expensive here as well, and most people are spending about $7,842 a year on transportation. Now you might say, well, couldn't you take a bus? Well, sure. Buses and a bus pass here in Orlando would be about $50 a month or $600 a year. But the bus system here is poorly underfunded. In fact, we're the largest city in the United States without a dedicated source of funding for our bus system. But if you aren't using the bus and you're using a car, this is usually the average amount of money you're spending. Car payments, gas, oil. And in our case, we have a series of additional tolls in our community, but that's not what makes Orlando more expensive. We're actually the third highest daily population conversion rate anywhere in the United States, behind Washington, D.C. and Sacramento. What that means is there's more people entering into the city limits and leaving the city limits every day than all but 2 other communities. So commuting is a big deal, and our mean travel time to and from work is one of the worst in the United States. That's according to the US Census, so you can always check it out and look me up on that. Then we look at food. Food costs about $4,383. And what's important about food is it used to be the most expensive part of any household budget. In fact, the minimum wage was originally established by looking at the cost of food. In fact, the poverty rate was first established by looking at the cost of food. And that's going back into the 1960s. And the most expensive thing in most people's budgets was milk. Nowadays, that's not the case, but food's still a major part of most families' budgets. Even if you're spending a lower amount on food, the percentage of money you're spending on food on eating out versus eating in is usually the same. The difference is the lower your income, the lower the quality of the food you're typically eating. As you have less income, you're eating food with a less nutritionally dense content, and that leads to other problems such as medical problems, which is our last area. Medical care on average costs the average Orlandoan $3,631. And that includes insurance co-payments, insurance premiums, and just out-of-pocket costs for something like Band-Aids or any other types of medical issues you might have during the year. But not everybody has healthcare insurance. So when you look at these numbers, you might think, well, yeah, but what if it's a family of 4, and what if this person's ill, or what if this person's elderly? All those things change. What I wanted to show you was, on average, these are the costs when you compare to the median wage. And when you subtract all these things in terms of expenses out of the median wage, you get an overall deficit of $1,406. That amount of money is a concern, especially when you consider it doesn't include things like clothing or school supplies. It doesn't include things such as a cell phone or television that you might be spending money on, or the internet. In the #1 tourist destination in the world, it doesn't include vacations. It doesn't include savings, and this is pre-tax. So all of these things are a concern when you start thinking about how much money people have to spend on living day to day, surviving. And if you're just working a regular 9 to 5, and this is what you're earning, it's a struggle to make ends meet every single day living here in Orlando. Now this isn't wholly unique to Orlando, but we are, again, the lowest median wage for individuals of the major metropolitan areas in this country. So when you're looking at the next candidate running for office, when you're talking about the next business coming to town, when you're thinking about how your school system is impacted or what your children are learning, when you're talking about anything going on in the community, it's important to know these types of facts. It's important to know where your city ranks compared to other communities in the United States. We have a lot of amazing things going on here, and we want to celebrate all of those amazing things. But knowledge is power, and we don't accomplish anything by pulling the covers up over our head and not talking about some of the same problems that we have. I had a friend in high school who stood up at a school assembly, raised his hand, and admitted that he was an alcoholic. He was captain of our football team and an amazing, amazing role model. I've always been impressed that he was willing to get up there and do that. And what I want to see our community do is stand up on the world stage, raise their hands and say, we have a problem, but watch us fix it. And as the most popular city anywhere in the world, we have a unique opportunity to encourage others to watch us as we improve our community. So I hope you'll be a part of that community. I hope you'll be a part of that improvement. And I hope you'll take this knowledge as the power you need to go out and make the change that you want to see in the world.